Right, well, hello guys, welcome back to the channel, and for this video, we're going to be reviewing well, I said January, but I got confused there, the summer transfer window so far. So yeah, there've been quite a few big transfers heading into this new season. We're going to be starting off here with Liverpool, and Florian Wirtz, as you can see on the top left. I blurred out the others until we get to talk to them. But yeah, Florian Wirtz, he obviously joined Liverpool for a grand total of 125 million euros from Bayer Leverkusen. Big amounts of money. It's very rare you see Liverpool spend that kind of amount of money, but of course, they wanted the best in talent, and Florian Wirtz is exactly that. Now, if we look over towards the top right, Hugo Ekitike, of course, with the unfortunate circumstances of what happened with Diogo Jota, Liverpool needed a new striker. Whether they would have signed one anyway without what happened, unfortunately, happened to Jota remains to be seen. But anyway, Hugo Ekitike, he has joined them for a total deal of £95 million. If I'm looking down, it's just because I'm looking at my notes, guys. So apologies for that. But yeah, 95 million euros package for Hugo Ekitike. Young up-and-coming striker. Liverpool actually beaten Newcastle to this deal, actually. I know they're not very happy about it, Newcastle, because there were rumours that obviously Liverpool wanted Isak, but then Newcastle told them to get lost, basically. So then Liverpool just decided, oh, you know what, we're going to take the guy you're after, Ekitike. And that's exactly what they've done. So fair play to Liverpool for that one. On the bottom left, we've got Milos Kerkez. Now, he joined them from Bournemouth for 46.9 million euros. Again, of course, Robertson is getting on a bit, so it makes sense as to why Liverpool are thinking in the future. And of course, Kerkez had a very, very good season with Bournemouth, helping them probably achieve their best finish in the Premier League ever, really. I mean, they had a good season, to be honest, under Iraola, and Kerkez was definitely a big, big part of that. So yeah, Kerkez definitely one for the future, and I think he'll be Liverpool's starting left back heading into the new season. And then finally, Frimpong, another one they've stole from Bayer Leverkusen. It's got him for about 40 million euros, because that was, I think they paid like his release clause, so I think that's like 20 something, like 25 million pounds roughly. So yeah, Frimpong, of course, he's kind of the Trent Alexander-Arnold replacement, but I don't know. I think Frimpong isn't really he's not really a right back, so to speak. So because obviously at Leverkusen he was more of a right mid, right wing kind of role, going very forward. Him and Grimaldo at Leverkusen. So it remains to be seen if Frimpong will be playing that sort of role. And what I've been seeing in pre-season for the Liverpool games is that they have been playing Frimpong at right wing, so he's been coming on for Salah in some games. So it's a bit odd, to be brutally honest, but I guess time will tell if it all goes to plan or not. Moving on to Liverpool's fiercest rivals, Manchester United, and we've brought in Matheus Cunha from Wolves. Now that is a very good signing. They brought him in for about 74.2 million euros, which is about 60 odd million pounds. So yeah, it's a good signing for Man United. Cunha has definitely impressed at Wolves. Was a big reason as to why they stayed up last season. We were able to avoid the drop because Cunha was just absolutely performing out of his mind for them. So yeah, Matheus Cunha, good signing for them, but of course with Man United being in the shambles they're in, God knows what's gonna be really happening there. But yeah, the other signing they made just recently, why Brian Mbeumo of Brentford, they paid about 75 million euros for him. Yeah, another good signing. Had a very, very good season for Brentford as they tried to push for European football but just couldn't get it done in the end. But yeah, he had a good campaign on Mbeumo. Of course, when they lost Ivan Toney, you were thinking maybe they might drop off a bit. But no, Mbeumo and Wizza had a very, very good duo. And it will remain to be seen where Mbeumo fits in. Maybe he takes game time for the likes of Amad Diallo, possibly. But it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. But those are two decent signings there for Man United. I know they brought in Diego Leon of some South American team. I can't remember who it was now. But yeah, that was for like 3 million or something like that. But yeah, these are the two main signings, Cunha and Mbeumo. And they do improve Man United's team. But of course, time will tell whether they can actually, sustain a good little challenge or not. Moving over to London now with Chelsea and João Pedro. Of course, they brought him in for Brighton for 63.7 million euros. So yeah, but it's a good signing. João Pedro had a very, very good campaign for Brighton. Definitely helped them in their push for European football. And yeah, João Pedro, yeah, he's always been quite decent, hasn't he? I remember when he was at Watford and he was performing quite well. Now, obviously, he went to Brighton, started to perform a little bit more consistently. Now he's got his big money move to Chelsea. The only question is, with obviously how many players Chelsea have, how on earth, like is he going to be the guaranteed starter? Because obviously, I mean, Jackson is rumoured to leave. There's been rumours about him going to Man United or whatever, but even if he stays, you've still got the likes of who we're about to mention now, Liam Delap, who has just joined them from Ipswich, relegated Ipswich for 35.5 million euros. Obviously, I'm always close to saying pounds, but it's actually in euros what I'm using. Using transfermarket.com, so shout out to them. But yeah, Liam Delap, I mean, he had a decent campaign for Ipswich, considering obviously Ipswich ended up going down and struggled for the most part, but he was one of their shining lights. And of course, like what I mentioned with João Pedro earlier, it'd be interesting to see if Delap does get some consistent game time, because obviously, yeah, he will be competing with João Pedro, Jackson if he stays. So it will be interesting who gets that starting position. And then finally, we've got Bidor Gittins. He signed from Borussia Dortmund for 64.3 million euros. Now, I know Chelsea wanted him before the Club World Cup started, but they couldn't get him in time, so they had to wait for an extra till like the knockout rounds before they could get Gittins in. They did the same with João Pedro, actually. But yeah, obviously Delap was with them from the get-go for the start of the Club World Cup, but then they had to wait for Gittins and João Pedro to be done in like the knockout rounds of the Club World Cup. But yeah, Bidor Gittins, he will obviously be playing on the left-hand side. Yeah, it's a good little addition that. He's always been pretty decent for Dortmund. I mean, I don't really watch that many Borussia Dortmund games, but whenever I have seen him play, he has made the difference. So yeah, Bidor Gittins is a very, very solid signing. And yeah, Chelsea, despite them having that many players, they're somehow actually investing in youth. I mean, I know we all joke about them being like the cowboy team because Todd Boehly just spends billion upon billion, but they're looking towards the future. And if some of these signings, or at least one of them, hits like pops off, so to speak, then yeah, they're looking quite good for the future. Could definitely challenge for the league potentially, but we'll have to wait and see. Now moving over to the other side of London, we have Arsenal. Now, of course, they brought in Zubimendi from Real Sociedad. Yeah, I mean, Liverpool were looking like they were going to get him for quite some time, but nope, he ended up going to Arsenal for about 70 million euros. Very, very solid player. Always performed well for Sociedad in that CDM role. They kind of did need it because obviously Thomas Partey's left the club, Jorginho's left the club. Declan Rice has been more of a box-to-box sort of player, so they needed somebody who would sit back a bit, and Zubimendi can definitely do that. He can definitely do that, and yep, he's been very, very good for Sociedad. I mean, as a Barca fan, I see quite a bit of Zubimendi when he's when we've played against them, and yeah, he's always impressed. I mean, he was linked to us not so long ago, but could never get done in the end. But here is what it is. Now, if the other one they've signed is Noni Madueke. It seems like Arsenal love taking Chelsea rejects. But yeah, they signed Madueke for 56 million euros. Yeah, not too. I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, of course, he will most likely be back up to Saka, Madueke, because they definitely did need that Arsenal. Because without Saka, who are they going to play there? Like Reece Nelson or like, I don't know. Like, I mean, Trossard can play up front. You suppose he could play on the right as well. But then if he's not really ideal on the right, and then they could play Jesus, I suppose. But Madueke, I'd say he is definitely better than Jesus for cover. And maybe you could even start on the left-hand side, potentially. Because obviously there's rumours about them not being too happy with Martinelli and how he's kind of dropped off a bit compared to where he was a few years ago. So yeah, Madueke, an interesting signing. I'll have to see how he gets on. But then the big one that they wanted, a striker, and that is Victor Gyökeres. Only happened like a few days ago as the time of recording this. They signed him from Sporting Lisbon for €65.8 million. Arsenal finally got their striker here. I mean, they've been playing the likes of Kai Havertz up there. I mean, he's still not right, Kai Havertz, but it hasn't exactly gone to... Well, he hasn't exactly scored a lot of the goals, has he? And then they've had like Jesus. He hasn't really been a proper out-and-out number 9. And then they haven't really had a proper number 9 since the likes of Aubameyang and Lacazette were at the club. So now that they've got Gyökeres, maybe he is the one that will get them over the line and actually help them win a title, potentially. Because the way I see it is, this is a big season for Arteta. If he doesn't get if he doesn't get a trophy this season, it could look a bit ugly for him. So yeah, Gyökeres was the desperately needed striker that they needed. He could be the missing piece in that jigsaw. And of course, he does have some Premier League experience, and he has experience in the English leagues. Of course, he played for Brighton, played for Coventry in the Championship. So it'll be interesting to see how Gyökeres gets on, but of course, time will tell. Another player that they brought in, oh, that's Mosquera. But yeah, I was meaning to go on the bottom left one, but here, Mosquera, they brought him in from Valencia for €15 million, which is actually quite a solid deal, to be fair. Quite young still, Mosquera, and he can definitely still grow. I mean, for the most part, he will be back up to Gabriel and Saliba, but I still do believe that Mosquera is a very good pickup for Arsenal and will impress for them. And then moving on, there we go. Christian Norgard, they signed him from Brentford for about 11.6 million euros. Not too bad of a signing. I mean, it adds more depth into that CDM position because obviously, like I mentioned with Zubimendi, Arsenal let go of Thomas Partey, let go of Jorginho. So they definitely did need some more CDMs. And yeah, obviously with Zubimendi would be the starting one, I imagine. But then Norgard can add that depth if like there's injuries or whatever, or suspensions. Norgard can come in and perform a decent job. Yeah, I do worry for Brentford though. This is off topic, but I do worry for Brentford in terms of like, because of course they've lost Mbeumo, they've lost Thomas Frank, Norgard's gone, and then it looks like Johan Wizard's going to the Saudi League. So yeah, they're losing a lot of their best players, and it remains to be seen how they're going to do and cope with them losses. But hey, Norgard, a good sign for Arsenal, and then the final one for Arsenal, Kepa. Now this was a bit of an odd one. I mean, he had a decent season for Bournemouth, to be fair. But yeah, they got him from Chelsea for about €5.8 million. Yeah, I mean, this guy is still somehow the most expensive goalkeeper of all time. Like, it was only a few years ago where he went for that, like, what, 75 million mark, and now he's going for, like, 5 million. What a fall from grace this is for Kepa. Damn, he's had a massive fall from grace, but I suppose he will just be the backup to David Raya. So, I mean, it's a decent little backup. I mean, of course, Arsenal last season, they did bring in Neto from Bournemouth. So they kind of got a good connection going on there. You're getting backup keepers, Arsenal. But yeah, overall, solid business from Arsenal. It remains to be seen how the likes of Madueke will get on. And Zubimendi, of course, adapting to a new league. And of course, will Gyökeres finally be the missing piece for them? Time will tell. Now, moving over to Spain, we've got Real Madrid. Now, of course, I don't like talking about Madrid that much because, obviously, for those of you that are regulars to the channel, I am a Barca fan, so I do not really like talking about Real Madrid that much. But Dean Huijsen, they brought him in from Bournemouth for €62.5 million. It's a solid signing towards the future. I will admit that. It is a good sign towards the future. Huijsen had a very good campaign for Bournemouth, was definitely one of their key players. Him, Kluivert, Zabarnyi, they were very, very integral to Bournemouth's very good season. And yeah, Huijsen, it's definitely looking to the future because obviously Rudiger's he's getting on a bit. And then obviously, I mean, they've also got like Militao, but he's always out injured. So it's like, you do need a bit of cover. But then looking towards another one they've brought in, it's a youngster called Mastuondo. They brought him in, the Argentine from River Plate. They brought him in for €45 million. I mean, I don't really know much about him, but I know he is the next up-and-coming thing in Argentine football. And, of course, he's been doing the bits for River Plate, from what I've heard. Of course, I've never seen him play because over here in Europe, we don't really see that many South American games. But I've heard he's good, so I guess time will tell in that sense. Then they've brought in a new left-back, Alvaro Carreras from Benfica, for 50 million euros. Now, I believe he was owned by Man United, kind of. It was like one of those things where Man United still had some sort of rights over him. So they've had to obviously Madrid negotiated with Benfica, and obviously they would have had to smooth things over with United, I imagine. But yeah, Corellas, from what I've seen of him, when obviously Barca played Benfica in the past, he's been quite solid. I mean, he's caused us a few problems, that's for sure. Remember in the Champions League last season when we played Benfica, the 5-4 game, he was insane, causing us so many problems to our back line. Although, to be fair, our back line was just an absolute disaster then. But, well, for that match it was. But, yeah, Corellas, decent signing for them. Of course, he'll be giving Ferland Mendy a bit of competition, but he might end up being the starter with Xabi Alonso, who knows. And then the final one, I suppose the biggest one they've done, Trent Alexander-Arnold. They brought him in from Liverpool for 10 million euros. Now, of course, Trent's contract was expiring at Liverpool, but Madrid wanted him to join up with them for the Club World Cup, so they ended up paying like 10 million for Trent. And I don't really understand it, to be honest. I mean, why bring in Trent when you've got like Carvajal? I mean, I know Carvajal's been out for like an ACL injury for quite some time, but I still just don't understand getting Trent. I mean, is Trent going to be the starter once Carvajal's like fully fit again, or is Carvajal like going to be benched? Like, I don't know. I mean, and there's always that question about Trent being dodgy defensively, and he is. Like, there's no two ways about it. He's as good as he is going forward. Defensively, he's an absolute shambles. And I mean, Carreras was playing as like an advanced fullback as well for Benfica. So if them two are playing, then Madrid are basically just going to have a back two. It's not going to end well. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see like why they brought Trent in, but hey, maybe Trent might prove people wrong. Maybe he might actually learn how to defend. But from the way I see it, I just don't see it happening personally. Going back over to England with Manchester City, and yeah, they've had a decent-ish window. I mean, they've had some few departures, the big one being Kevin De Bruyne. That was a massive, massive departure for them. If I could just find my notes about City. There we are. Right, Cherki. Ryan Cherki, of course, they brought him in from Lyon for 36.5 million euros. Cherki's always been one of those players that he's got the potential. Everybody's banging on about him going to the next level, but he stayed at Lyon for ages and ages and ages. But obviously, with them having their financial troubles, I mean, it wasn't that long ago when they were said they were getting relegated to Ligue 2 due to their financial troubles, but they managed to find a way around that, and they've stayed in Ligue 1, thankfully. But yeah, Cherki, it's a 36.5 million. He did look impressive in the Club World Cup whenever I'd seen him play, but obviously you might not see him play that much due to the Pep roulette, because Pep loves rotating every now and then. But yeah, Cherki, whenever I have seen him, he has looked pretty solid. I remember in the Europa League when Lyon played Man United, he did look very impressive in that game, in those games, Cherki. Moving over to someone who I don't really know much about, Naipan. They signed him from Rosenborg in Austria, I believe that is, for 15 million euros. I know he's Norwegian, so I don't know. Well, he's a young Norwegian. That's really all I know about him, to be honest. But I imagine he probably will be getting loaned out. I don't really see him getting into Man City's team, to be brutally honest. So yeah, I imagine he will be loaned out somewhere, but the where, who knows? But yeah, I suppose they're thinking of the future, Man City. I suppose they are thinking about the future. But yeah, Aït-Nouri now, they signed him from Wolves for 36.8 million. Yeah, I mean, it's a solid little addition, that Aït-Nouri. Of course, he had a decent campaign for Wolves last season. Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all from Aït-Nouri. I mean, him and Cunha were definitely one of the big reasons as to why Wolves were able to pull away from that relegation battle. And it would be a big loss for Wolves. I mean, of course, losing Cunha was bad enough to the other side of Manchester. But then losing Aït-Nouri, yeah, it's pretty bad. But as for Man City, yeah, I mean, they've got a good fullback in their squad now. Well, a good left back, because obviously Gvardiol was having to cover their left back last season. Did a good job. But I think Pep is more thinking about getting like a natural fullback back in again. And that's exactly what he's doing with Aït-Nouri. So I imagine Gvardiol was probably going to slot back into the centre-back role, alongside like a Kanji or maybe John Stones if he stays. Ruben Diaz, who knows? But yeah, it's a good little signing there from Pep and Man City. And then the final one, Reinders. Now, this is a very good addition. They brought him in from AC Milan for 55 million euros. Very, very solid addition. I mean, whenever I've seen Reinders play, he's looked very solid for AC Milan. I remember when the AC Milan beat Real Madrid like 3-1 at the Bernabeu in the Champions League, and yeah, he was a big part of that. Looked very, very impressive. Dominated the midfield battle. And yeah, Reinders, I mean, of course, Man City's midfield is getting on a bit. I mean, of course, Rodri's just coming back of an ACL injury. Kovacic isn't getting any younger, nor is Gundogan. So yeah, they definitely need to invest in that position, get a bit more youth in. And Reinders definitely does exactly that. And yeah, I think City have had a decent window, to be fair. Of course, time will be said whether, of course, those 115 charges come into play. But for now, just basically on the football terms, they've had a decent window. Now, Atletico Madrid, yeah, they've made a lot of signings, so this is a bit messed up, all this graphic, so I do apologise for that, because, yeah, the amount of signings they've made, it's a bit crazy. It is a bit crazy, but we're going to start off with Alex Baena, who they brought in from Villarreal for 42 million euros. Not that bad of a signing, to be fair. Baena has always been one of those players that he's definitely stood out a bit in La Liga. Of course, he's been performed for Villarreal and when they've been trying to challenge for Europe. And yeah, Baena is, well, he was one of their best players, and now that they've lost him, they're going to struggle a bit. But yeah, Baena, I've always been a big fan of him. He can play in the left midfield. He can play in the centre mid. He can do a decent job, Baena. So I think that is a very good signing for Atletico Madrid there. Johnny Cardoso of Real Betis they brought in. The CDM brought him in for 24 million euros. Yeah, and that's a good signing as well. I mean, of course, Koke is not getting any younger, so they definitely did need to think about that in that sense, Atletico Madrid. And yeah, Johnny Cardoso, the young American, he can definitely improve their squad because, yeah, I mean, if they want to be really challenging Barca and Real Madrid for La Liga titles, this is the kind of signings they need to make. Then next, Clement Lenglet, my favourite guy. I don't know if you can see him. He's like right there. I'll move out the way. There he is. Clement Lenglet. They brought him in on a free transfer from Barca because, yeah, we needed rid of Clement Lenglet. I can't lie. His wages were disgustingly bad. But yeah, thankfully, Lenglet is no longer part of Barca, and he's now Atletico Madrid's problem. I don't know how he got that much game time, to be honest, but hey ho, I mean, Simeone clearly sees something in him, so fair enough, I guess. Of course, he was on loan there last season longer, but now they made it permanent, but we didn't get any money from it. Nice. But yeah, the next one, we have got Ruggeri from Atalanta for 17 million euros. He's a left wing back, so of course this fits in Atletico Madrid's sort of style where they want like three at the back with like a bunch of players, like wingers, wing backs, so to speak. But of course, Simeone can adapt. He can go for four at the back, but I don't really know much about Ruggeri, to be brutally honest. I need to watch more Serie A, if I'm being for real. I do need to watch a bit more Serie A because, yeah, I don't really know much about Ruggeri, but I imagine he'd be good. And then also another player that I haven't included on this list, but they signed him from Atalanta, Musso, signed him for 3 million euros, the Argentinian goalkeeper. Yeah, he was on loan there last season, but I think they just decided to make him permanent. Just give him, like, all-black competition. But yeah, we now move on to Thiago Almada, one of the young... I mean, a few years ago, he was doubted as, like... he was put up as, like, the next Messi. There's a lot of youngsters are, unfortunately, and it just never happens. But yeah, they signed him from Botafogo for 21 million. I mean, I remember him being at Lyon, so I don't know how he's ended up at Botafogo, but yeah, it's a good little signing that for Atletico Madrid. I mean, I don't know where he's going to fit in, because usually Atletico don't really play with an attacking midfielder. So it'll be interesting to see where he fits in. Maybe he might do like the Griezmann role, almost act as like a false nine behind Julian Alvarez. But I guess time will tell. And then we move on to David Hanko. They signed him from Feyenoord for 26 million euros. Yeah, it's a good little cover that. He's quite versatile as well, Hanko. Can play at centre-back, can play at left-back. So yeah, he's quite a versatile player, to be honest. And yeah, he could definitely provide the cover. And of course, the fact that obviously Jimenez, he's been there for absolutely ages. I remember him partnering Godin, the Uruguayan duo at the back of Atletico Madrid. But yeah, obviously he isn't getting any younger now, Jimenez, so he definitely needs. They need to look towards the future at Atletico, and Hanko is definitely that. And then the final one is Pubil. I don't really know much about him, and they signed him from Almeria for 16 million euros. I mean, I know he's a young right back from. Well, yeah, I think he had a decent campaign in the Segunda division last time out. So yeah, they're obviously looking towards the future again here at Atletico Madrid, wanting some players that they can think towards the future. And overall, they've had a busy window at Atletico, very very busy window, but. Of course, time will tell whether all these signings can gel and whether they can actually challenge Barca and Real Madrid for the La Liga title. Going back to England now with Tottenham. And the main one they signed, Mohamed Kudus from West Ham. It was a very, very, I mean, it looked like he was going to go elsewhere, Kudus, but the fact that he got to Tottenham, it's a decent deal. I mean, 63.8 million euros, very, very big amounts of money. But I suppose, obviously, the likes of Son not getting any younger, and the fact, I mean, Son's even been rumoured to have moved to the MLS. He's been rumoured to have gone to LAFC, which would be a bit of a odd one, to be honest. But yeah, Kudus, he's always been impressive at West Ham. I mean, of course, he's had his iffy moments where he's had a few red cards and a bit of head loss and this and that and the other. But overall, he is a very solid player, and I'm excited to see what he can do for Tottenham. And then moving on to the other signings they made. Kevin Danzo, of course, or I might as well just mention Tell as well. Danzo and Tell, yeah, of course, they were on loan there last season for the second half of last season, joined Tottenham on loan in January. But they've made their moves permanent for 25 million for Danzo, then 35 million for Tell. So, I mean, both of them didn't really get their shining moments in Tottenham shirts, but maybe with like a full season that they're coming up towards, maybe now they can really show their quality, but time will tell in that sense. Now moving on to my boys, Barca. Now Joan Garcia, we signed him from our local rivals Espanyol. It was his release clause. It was about 25 million euros. Yeah, 25 million euros. Solid addition at the goalkeeper position because obviously we had Chesney for the most part. Well, for the second half of last season, we had Chesney mostly playing in between the sticks, and I mean, as good as Chesney is, he isn't getting any younger. So I felt like we needed a bit of youth in there, and of course Ter Stegen, he's less said about Ter Stegen the better, because what's been coming out with him the past few weeks and months, it's been very, very disgusting. If I must admit, he has not shown any sort of professionalism whatsoever. And yeah, good on the club for trying to freeze him out. But the problem is, he's not going to go anywhere because he's having back surgery. So fantastic. But yeah, Joan Garcia. Of course, he got La Liga goalkeeper of the season for Espanyol. Was a big reason as to why they stayed up in the end. But yeah, Joan Garcia, a very good addition for the future. Then on the top right, Rooney Bardghji. Of course, if you've seen my watch along the other day, then you would have seen that he scored, and yeah, I was absolutely buzzing for him. But yeah, Rooney Bardghji joined us from Copenhagen for about 2 million euros. So yeah, but it's a very solid addition, that Bardghji. You can provide backup to Lamine Yamal, which is something that we definitely didn't have enough last season. We were forcing too many games on Lamine Yamal, and thankfully he didn't get an injury, but yeah, it wasn't it was still quite risky to do. But yeah, Rooney Bardghji, it's good solid cover for Lamine Yamal, and there's rumours he could fluctuate between the first and the B team, but the problem is with Barca B, or Barca Athletic as they're officially known as, now being in the fourth division of Spanish football, it's not really ideal for a player to develop there. So yeah, I'd want Bardghji to be staying in the first team as much as possible. Then the final signing we've made, Marcus Rashford. Now this was a bit of an odd one. I can't lie, because obviously we were linked with Nico Williams. That fell through after he signed his contract and everything. We've been linked to Luis Diaz, but it looks like he's obviously going to Bayern Munich, and Liverpool wanted ridiculous amounts of money for him. So yeah, we just pulled ourselves out of that one. But yeah, Rashford, we got him on a loan deal from Man United for about, well, it was obviously just a straight up loan deal, but the buy option is about 30 million euros if he does end up impressing Rashford. Would I have signed Rashford personally? No, I wouldn't. But I mean, if he can impress, then fair play to him. But I just don't see it happening. I mean, he's not going to start every game because he's behind Rafinha. He's behind Lewandowski and Ferran Torres, in my opinion. So I just don't know where he's going to really get the game time. But, I mean, if he impresses off the bench, then fair play to him. But I guess time will tell, I suppose. But, yeah, those are the signings we've made. I mean, even the Porter said we're not planning on making any more signings. So, I mean, time will tell about that. Whatever the Porter says, you got to take with a pinch of salt. Bayer Leverkusen. Now, Joel Kwanzaa. They signed him from Liverpool, which was quite a surprising move, to be brutally honest. I can't lie. I didn't expect that to happen. But Joel Kwanzaa, where is Bayer Leverkusen's things at? Bear with me, guys. Oh, no, there it is. Right, they signed Joel Kwanzaa from Liverpool for 35 million euros. Of course, they got a new coach now in Erik ten Hag after Xabi Alonso went to Real Madrid. So, yeah, obviously Ten Hag clearly is a fan of Kwanzaa, and hence why he's brought him in. And, of course, they have lost, like, Jonathan Tah, etc. So, yeah, Kwanzaa is definitely one for the future. I mean, he has impressed when I've seen him play for Liverpool. He definitely did impress, but whether he can fill in the shoes of Jonathan Tah remains to be seen. Another one they brought in, Malik Tillman of PSV. They brought him in for 35 million euros as well. And yeah, I mean, he's had a decent campaign for PSV. Of course, Ten Hag just loves to go for the Dutch players. Well, he's not Dutch, but you know what I mean. He loves to go for like players who are in the Eredivisie, because it seems like Ten Hag just loves to do that. I mean, you've seen him do that when he was at Man United, when he brought in the likes of De Ligt, Onana, Antony. So yeah, yeah, Ten Hag just loves bringing in players from like the Eredivisie, but yeah, Tillman should be quite good for them, I'd imagine. And then the final one they've signed, Flekken of Brentford. That was another one I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about how Brentford might struggle this season. But yeah, Flekken, he was brought in from Brentford for about 10 million euros. Of course, he most likely will just be back up to Hiradecky. But of course, time will tell. I mean, of course, Leverkusen didn't want to. I mean, it's quite funny because obviously they've lost Wirtz, they've lost Frimpong. They're now going to lose Granit Xhaka to Sunderland, which is absolutely mental. But it's quite funny because Ten Hag said that they're not going to lose Xhaka, but then look what happened. But yeah, Leverkusen's business, I mean, it's quite decent, but I don't know if they'll be able to challenge Bayern Munich with it. But then finally, we have AC Milan and Pervis Estupiñán. This went a bit under the radar, if you ask me. Went very under the radar. I thought he was still at Brighton, but then it was only when I'd seen Liverpool's pre-season game against AC Milan where I'd seen that Estupiñán was playing for them, and I was a bit taken aback. I was like, when the hell's that happened? But yeah, he's joined AC Milan from Brighton for 17 million euros. It's a solid little addition, that Estupiñán, because when he's at his best, he can definitely perform quite well, and I feel like Italian football might suit him quite well. But of course, time will really tell for that one. And then they've decided to also go with Ricky from Torino for 23 million euros. Again, I don't know much about him, but if AC Milan sees something in a player, that usually means that they're good, right? Usually, anyway. And then the final one, I suppose the biggest one for them, they brought in Luka Modric on a free transfer from Real Madrid, which is absolutely mental. I mean, he's very ancient now, Modric, so maybe Italian football will suit him a lot more now that obviously he's past his best. Let's be real, but he can still deliver, Luka Modric. He can still deliver, but how many minutes he's going to play over there remains to be seen. Now, with some honourable mentions, we've got Anthony Elanga, who went to Newcastle. Decent little deal there. I mean, it's the only deal Newcastle have actually got over the line, to be brutally honest. no disrespect, but like, it actually is the only deal they got over the line. Napoli get a shout out here because they brought in Noah Lang for about 25 million euros. And then, of course, they brought in Kevin De Bruyne on a free transfer, which was absolutely mental. I mean, I know De Bruyne has his injury problems these days, but he's still got top quality. And then, I know it's showing Xhaka, but we're just going to mention Sunderland. Because, like, the amount of players that they've brought in, despite obviously just being newly promoted back to the Premier League, they brought in Simon Adingra from Brighton. Of course, they got that Enzo Lafay on a permanent. But then they brought in Xhaka now, which is absolutely mental. They've got Ronaldo from Atletico Madrid, which is even more crazy. Sunderland are making moves, to be fair to them. Yeah, and honestly, I hope they manage to survive the drop in the Premier League. And they give themselves a fighting chance, that's for sure. Nobody can deny that. They're giving themselves a very good fighting chance. But yeah, that is where we're going to leave this video for today, guys. Let me know what you thought about these transfers in the comment section below. Where you think those clubs are going to achieve good things this season, or whether those signings are going to flop. Let me know that in the comment section below. And if you have enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.